A traveler deep within a dense, ancient forest in the heart of the American continent. Around them, the trees grow so closely together that the sunlight only reaches the ground in fractured, dancing shards. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and the rustle of leaves. This traveler is moving, constantly moving, hacking away at vines and stepping over gnarled roots. Yet there is a growing sense of unease. Despite the effort, despite the sweat on their brow and the steady rhythm of their pace, they realize they have no idea where they are going. They are surrounded by the immediate reality of bark and branch, seeing only what is 3 feet in front of them. This is the condition of many who find themselves in positions of responsibility, caught in the thicket of the immediate, unable to see the horizon, because the forest itself has become their entire world. In the quiet spaces of the mind, a fundamental truth begins to emerge, that true direction requires a temporary abandonment of the path. Success in guidance and influence is not merely about the strength of one's stride, but about the clarity of one's destination. In this narrative journey, the focus shifts towards those who have mastered the art of the ascent. These are individuals who understand that to lead others through the wilderness, one must occasionally stop walking and start climbing. They recognize that the minute details of the daily grind, while necessary, can become a shroud that obscures the larger purpose. The atmosphere of this exploration is one of quiet contemplation and sudden, breathtaking clarity, where the noise of the world fades and the grand design of a life's work begins to reveal itself. There is a specific kind of wisdom required to acknowledge when the view from the ground is no longer sufficient. It is a moment of profound realization when a person looks at their long list of tasks, their packed schedule, and the frantic energy of their team, and senses that something vital is missing. They are doing everything right, yet the results feel hollow or disconnected from a larger meaning. This realization is the hook that pulls the spirit upward. It is the beginning of a transformation from a person who merely reacts to the world into one who shapes it. The journey through these ideas will delve into why so many remain trapped on the forest floor, and how the most effective individuals learn to break through the canopy of the mundane to see the world from above. As this story unfolds, it invites a deep reflection on the nature of perspective. It is not just about seeing more, it is about seeing differently. It is about the courage to step back when everyone else is leaning in. It is about the silence found at high altitudes, where the patterns of human behavior and the flow of global trends become visible. The narrative will explore the tension between the urgent and the important, the struggle between the tactile comfort of the known and the expansive potential of the unknown. By the end of this introduction, the listener should feel the weight of the forest and the pull of the sky, prepared to understand why looking with a broader perspective is the single most defining characteristic of a successful journey through leadership. Every action taken, every word spoken, and every thought harbored throughout a lifetime has been a preparation for this specific moment of growth. There is an invitation here to join an elite group of thinkers who refuse to be blinded by the trees. The air is thinning, the ground is falling away, and the vast sweeping panorama of possibility is about to be revealed. The question is no longer just about how to survive the day, but about how to map the future. The transition from the earth to the air is beginning, and with it, a new way of existing in the world starts to take shape. In the bustling corridors of modern organizations, whether in the grand cities of Europe or the growing hubs of Latin America, a common scene plays out daily. A person of influence sits at a desk, surrounded by the digital glow of multiple screens, responding to a never-ending stream of messages. They are the firefighters of the professional world, moving from one crisis to another with practiced agility. They take pride in their ability to solve problems quickly, to check items off a list, and to maintain a tight grip on every moving part of their operation. This is the setup for a great internal conflict, the belief that being busy is the same as being effective. This person has spent years honing their skills in the details, and those very skills are what brought them to their current height. Yet those same skills are now becoming the bars of a cage. This conflict is rooted in a deep-seated habit. When these individuals were in more junior roles, their value was measured by their output, by how many tasks they completed and how well they managed the specifics. The transition to a broader role often happens without a corresponding transition in mindset. They carry the tools of a laborer into the office of an architect. There is a palpable tension here, a fear that if they stop doing, they are no longer providing value. They worry that if they are not seen in the trenches with their team, they will lose respect, or worse, lose control. This internal struggle is the primary obstacle to achieving a higher state of influence. It is the weight that keeps the pilot on the runway, afraid to trust the lift of the wings. Consider the psychological landscape of such a person. There is a strange comfort in the urgent. A crisis demands immediate attention, providing a rush of adrenaline and a clear sense of accomplishment once it is resolved. In contrast, strategic thinking, looking at the broader perspective, feels quiet, slow, and often unproductive in the short term. It requires sitting with uncertainty and gazing into a future that has not yet arrived. For many, this silence is terrifying. They fill it with micromanagement, hovering over their colleagues, watching every move, and intervening at the slightest deviation from their own methods. They believe they are helping, but in reality, they are suffocating the very growth they are supposed to nurture. This tension between the micro and the macro creates a stagnant environment. The team feels the pressure of being watched, which breeds a culture of dependency. If the person at the top is always there to catch the falling pieces, no one else learns how to juggle. The firefighter is exhausted, and the forest remains unmapped. The core problem identified in this narrative is this: without a broader perspective, there is no strategy, only reaction. There is no vision, only survival. The story of a successful journey is the story of someone who learns to resist the siren song of the immediate task list. To move forward, one must confront the origin of this difficulty. Is it a lack of trust in others or a lack of trust in oneself? Is it a fear of being perceived as idle? In many professional cultures, especially in competitive regions like England or Spain, the image of the hard-working leader is often synonymous with the person who stays the longest and works the hardest on the smallest details. Breaking this mold requires a revolutionary shift in values. It requires the understanding that the most important work a leader does often looks like doing nothing at all to the untrained eye. It looks like staring out a window, or taking a long walk, or spending a week in deep reflection. As the narrative moves towards its next phase, the focus shifts from the struggle to the solution. The transition is subtle but profound. It begins with the realization that the view from the ground is fundamentally limited. To see the patterns, to anticipate the storms, and to find the most efficient path through the landscape, one must find a way to ascend. The setup is complete. The hero of this story is trapped in the trees, but they have just noticed the sky above the canopy. The next step is to learn how to fly. The transition begins with a metaphor that resonates through the ages: the pilot and the clouds. Imagine an aircraft taxiing through a thick gray fog on the ground. The visibility is poor, and every movement feels cautious and constrained. But then, the engines roar, the wheels leave the tarmac, and the vessel pierces through the heavy moisture. Suddenly, the pilot is bathed in brilliant, unfiltered sunlight. Below, the clouds that seemed so suffocating are now a soft white carpet, and the entire horizon stretches out in a perfect 360-degree circle. This is the essence of the broader perspective. It is not about escaping reality, but about ascending to a point where the true nature of reality becomes clear. From this height, the individual begins to see patterns that were invisible from the ground. They notice how a problem in one department is actually linked to a trend in a completely different sector. They see the flow of resources and the ripples of influence like rivers and roads on a map. This deep exploration into the macro view allows for a strategic understanding of responsibilities. Instead of asking, "What must I do today?" the question becomes, "Where are we going over the next 5 years?" This shift in questioning changes the very vibration of the workplace. It replaces anxiety with intention. There is a profound emotional depth to this development. When a leader stops micromanaging, they are essentially performing an act of faith. They are stepping back and saying to their team, "I believe in your ability to handle the details." This creates space for the team to flourish. It is like a gardener who stops constantly moving the soil and instead focuses on the climate and the long-term health of the garden. The team members, previously stifled by constant oversight, begin to take ownership of their roles. They grow in confidence and skill, fueled by the autonomy they have been granted. This is the hidden foe of the broader perspective. It empowers others even as it clarifies the leader's own path. However, this ascent is not without its challenges. The air at high altitudes is thin, and the silence can be deafening for someone used to the noise of the crowd. There is a sense of isolation that comes with looking at the future. While others are discussing the events of the morning, the strategic leader is pondering the implications of a technology that won't be mature for a decade. They are looking for emerging ideas in business and society, often feeling like they are speaking a different language than those stuck in the present. This intellectual and emotional progression requires a sturdy inner compass. In this phase of the narrative, the protagonist, the archetype of the successful leader, begins to value strategic time as their most precious resource. They might be found in a quiet office in a bustling city in Europe, or perhaps in a secluded retreat in the American continent, but their mind is always elsewhere, in the what if and the how might we. They start to see their role not as a commander, but as an architect of ecosystems. They are no longer interested in winning the battle. They are focused on ensuring the peace that follows. As the exploration deepens, the narrative reveals that this perspective is a skill that can be cultivated. It involves zooming out like a professional photographer, moving from the macro shot of a single flower to the panoramic landscape of the entire mountain range. It requires overcoming the barriers of discomfort and the habit of being productive in a traditional sense. The insight starting to emerge is that the most successful individuals are those who can move fluidly between the two views, the detail and the horizon, but who choose to live, most of the time, in the horizon. The tension is rising as the old habits clash with this new, expansive way of being. The realization is dawning. To stay in the trees is to eventually perish in the dark, but to stay in the air is to lead the way to the sun.
The turning point arrives when the leader finally confronts the ultimate cost of their previous myopia. In a moment of critical revelation, perhaps during a period of significant change or crisis, they see that their constant involvement in the now has left them blind to a looming tomorrow. They realize that by being the best firefighter in the region, they have allowed the entire landscape to be redesigned by competitors who were looking from above. This is the climax of the internal journey, the collapse of the old identity. The doer must die so that the visionary can be born. It is an emotionally gripping sequence of self-reflection where the individual acknowledges that their helpfulness was actually a form of interference. This revelation often happens in a quiet moment of clarity, away from the office, perhaps while looking out over a vast landscape in Latin America or the rolling hills of Europe. The realization hits: the true responsibility of leadership is not to do the work, but to ensure the work matters. The perspective shifts from how to why. This is the point where the trajectory of the story changes irrevocably. The leader decides to consciously zoom out and stay there. They choose the upper floor of the mind, a place of reflection and strategic distance. Translating this into action requires a dramatic break from the past. It means clearing the calendar of the trivial. It means saying no to meetings where their presence is merely a safety net for others. It involves the discomfort of watching a team struggle with a problem and resisting the urge to jump in and solve it. This is the peak of the tension, the silence before the breakthrough. The leader is essentially recalibrating their entire value system. They are learning to find satisfaction, not in the completion of a task, but in the clarity of a plan. As they hold this high-altitude view, the patterns mentioned earlier begin to coalesce into a coherent strategy. They see the future not as a threat, but as a series of opportunities waiting to be shaped. This turning point redefined their entire presence. They become a source of calm and direction for their team, rather than a source of pressure and scrutiny. The atmosphere changes from one of frantic motion to one of purposeful progress. The revelation is that by doing less, they are achieving vastly more. This is the moment of transition into a new understanding. The leader understands that their team's flourishing is directly tied to their own ability to step back. They see that their role is to provide the aerial view for those on the ground, guiding them through the obstacles they cannot see from their own perspective. The climax is not an explosion of activity, but an explosion of insight. The clouds have been pierced, and the world below looks different now, manageable, interconnected, and full of potential. This sequence concludes with a sense of profound peace. The struggle against the urge to micromanage has been won. The fear of being unproductive has been replaced by the confidence of the strategist. The leader has moved from the American continent to a global mindset, seeing their responsibilities as part of a much larger story. The transformation is complete, and the narrative moves into the aftermath of this new way of being, where the consequences of this high-level vision begin to manifest in the real world. The trajectory has been reset, and the path forward is finally clear, not because the forest has disappeared, but because the traveler has learned how to fly above it.
The aftermath of this shift in perspective is visible in the transformation of both the leader and the environment they influence. In the weeks and months following the ascent, the atmosphere in the home region's workplace begins to change. The frantic energy of the firefighting days is replaced by a steady, focused hum of activity. Because the leader has stopped micromanaging, the team members have had to step into their own power. They have encountered challenges and solved them. They have made mistakes and learned from them. The result is a more resilient, capable, and innovative group of people. The leader watches from their strategic height, not with detachment, but with the quiet pride of a mentor who has successfully created more leaders. This period of resolution brings a new kind of productivity. With the leader focused on the upper floor, the strategic and long-term challenges, the organization begins to anticipate changes in the market or the social landscape before they happen. They are no longer reacting to the world. They are moving in harmony with it, or even leading the way. The time once spent on the minutiae of daily tasks is now invested in attending conferences on future trends, engaging with mentors, and participating in planning committees. The leader's influence is no longer measured by the volume of their voice in a meeting, but by the depth of their insight in a strategy session. Internal transformation is equally profound. The individual feels a sense of space and time they never thought possible. By stepping back from the urgent, they have found the room to breathe, to think, and to reflect. This strategic time becomes a sacred part of their week. They might spend it in a library, a park, or a quiet room, looking at the wide-angle view of their responsibilities. They find that this reflection leads to better planning, which in turn helps their colleagues work more effectively. It is a virtuous cycle of growth. There is also a settling of the soul. The anxiety of needing to be in the know about every tiny detail fades away. They realize that they don't need to know everything to lead effectively. They just need to know the right things. They have overcome the barrier of nervousness that comes with strategic thinking and have embraced the role of the visionary. This transition into clarity is the ultimate resolution of the conflict presented at the beginning of the journey. The hiker who was lost in the woods is now the pilot who maps the terrain. As the narrative winds down, the focus remains on the enduring impact of this change. The legacy of such a leader is not found in the tasks they completed, but in the direction they set and the people they empowered. They have moved from being a participant in the chaos to being an architect of order. This aftermath is characterized by a sense of stability and forward momentum. The landscape they once feared losing control over is now thriving under their distant but attentive gaze. This resolution serves as a bridge to the final reflection. It demonstrates that the broader perspective is not a luxury, but a necessity for sustained success. It shows that the courage to step back is the very thing that allows one to move forward with purpose. The story of the leader who zoomed out is a testament to the power of vision over action and strategy over urgency. The quiet after the storm of micromanagement is not a void, but a fertile ground for the future to grow. The narrative has come full circle, from the suffocating trees to the limitless sky, and now to the grounded, purposeful application of that sky-born wisdom. The journey concludes not with a final destination, but with a lingering, philosophical clarity. The essence of the broader perspective is more than a technique for management. It is a way of seeing the world that honors the complexity of life while seeking the simplicity of truth. It is the understanding that while we must live in the present, we are only truly effective when we are also anchored in the future.
This narrative has followed the path of those who refuse to be defined by the immediate, who understand that the most important view is the one that encompasses the whole. In the final reflection, one sees that the successful individual is like the great observer who stands on a high peak in the European mountains or the vast plains of the American continent. From that height, they see that the individual trees are part of a forest. The forest is part of an ecosystem, and the ecosystem is part of a planet. Everything is connected. By choosing to zoom out, they are acknowledging these connections and working with them rather than against them. They have learned that true power is not found in the control of details, but in the understanding of relationships and the anticipation of change. This broader perspective leaves the listener with a sense of quiet contemplation. It challenges the modern obsession with constant, visible activity and invites a deeper, more reflective form of engagement. It suggests that the most profound work we can do is often invisible, the work of thinking, planning, and trusting. The emotional resonance of this conclusion is one of liberation. There is a freedom in letting go of the small things to make room for the big things. There is a peace in knowing that by stepping back, we are actually allowing the world to move forward more effectively. As this story of growth and vision comes to a close, the final takeaway is simple yet revolutionary. The quality of your perspective determines the quality of your journey. If you spend your life among the trees, you will only ever know the bark. If you find the courage to ascend, you will know the world. Success is not about how fast you can run through the forest, but about how high you can fly above it. This insight is the legacy of those who have mastered the art of leading with a wide-angle lens. Leaving the listener in this state of clarity, the narrative serves as a reminder that the opportunity to zoom out is available at every moment. It is a choice we make every morning when we look at our schedules and every afternoon when we interact with our colleagues. It is the choice to be a pilot rather than a passenger, an architect rather than a laborer. The vast panorama of possibility remains open, waiting for those with the vision to see it and the courage to follow where it leads. In the end, the broader perspective is a gift we give to ourselves and to those we influence. It is the gift of space, of time, and of meaning. It transforms a career into a calling and a life into a legacy. As the last echoes of this narrative fade, the image that remains is one of a vast, sunlit horizon, stretching out into infinity, a reminder that there is always more to see, provided we are willing to look from a higher place. The ascent is over, the vision is clear, and the future is waiting to be shaped by those who can see it coming.